Now, the final installment in this week's series, The Green Rush. In our previous pieces, we've seen how the marijuana industry is booming across the country. But amid this growth, there are serious concerns that those most affected by decades of marijuana criminalization are being left out. Yamiche Alcindor is back for this report. It's part of our occasional series, Chasing the Dream on Poverty and Opportunity in America.
These are all of the amazing products that we carry at Simply Pure.
In the marijuana industry, Wanda James has made a name for herself. She opened her first dispensary in 2009. Since then, her company, Simply Pure, has become one of the premier brands in Denver. James is also a pioneer.
We were actually the first African Americans legally licensed in America to own a dispensary.
But as the industry grows, James now finds herself more of an outlier.
When you look around that cannabis industry as an African American woman, what do you see?
White men. White men. White men. White men.
More and more states are moving to legalize recreational marijuana. Those efforts have led many to look into issues of diversity and question just who is benefiting the most from the industry.
Data is hard to come by, but a recent survey of nearly 400 marijuana businesses found that more than 80% were owned by white men. The numbers also show that African Americans and Latinos bore the brunt of marijuana criminalization. The American Civil Liberties Union found between 2001 and 2010, black people were nearly 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than whites. That despite roughly equal rates of use.
The collateral consequences of even a petty drug offense is huge.
Art Way was the Colorado State Director for the Drug Policy Alliance for nearly a decade.
You're talking about consequences when it comes to employment, housing, education. And here we have a demographic who is already dealing with an uphill battle when it comes to broader structural inequity.
For James, those consequences were personal.
Unfortunately, my brother was caught up in that. At age 18, he was caught with 4 ounces of cannabis, which is about $160 worth of street value for cannabis, and that cost him 10 years of his life. When he first went to a privatized prison system, for the first 4 years, my black brother picked cotton every day.
Now cities and states are trying to address this issue with varying degrees of success. In Colorado, diversity wasn't part of the initial legalization effort.
People didn't know what they didn't know at the time. I think people were just trying to get this passed and get started and then, make sure we get this up and running.
Ashley Kilroy is director of the Office of Marijuana Policy for the city of Denver.
We were just trying to make sure the sky wasn't going to fall. We were worried about what it could do for our city. We were worried about what it might look like for crime in the city, what it might look like for our youth. I know business owners who I talked to, they were just worried about making sure they didn't go to jail.
Last year, Denver started a program to seal records of people with low-level marijuana charges. So far, only a few hundred people have applied. And this year, the city plans to use about $11 million in marijuana tax revenue for affordable housing projects.
We've got a lot of these broad brush approaches, and we don't think, there's one magic bullet. I think nothing is off the table, and we are willing to choose whatever we think is going to make the biggest impact for Denver.
Still, advocates say the city is simply not doing enough. Instead, they want to lower the barriers to get into the marijuana industry.
Minorities just don't have a strong enough footprint to outweigh the money issues. So we have the edibles, THC syrup.
Joshua Littlejohn has been making marijuana products in Colorado for years. He wants his own license to expand his business, but so far, he hasn't been able to get one. In 2008, he was convicted of a misdemeanor marijuana possession charge.
The biggest thing is the opportunity to change my life, not only my life, but my kids' life and their kids' lives. So that's what attracted me off just out the gate.
But opening a site can cost millions of dollars in real estate, legal fees, and regulatory compliance. And despite his experience in the industry, Littlejohn says investors look at him differently.
I think that it's a fear. It's just a fear thing.
A fear of what?
Fear that we're not going to do the right things, or fear that, okay, yeah, you had this industry before, but you've only done it illegally. You don't know how to do it on, I guess, the level that they feel, and this is verbatim. I've had people tell us, you guys cannot do how we can do it.
Denver says the city needs time to study the issue. It's now trying to collect demographic data to build a program to help minorities get into the industry. Since Colorado legalized, Other states have tried to deal with this issue from day one. Massachusetts was the first state to include language in its legislation specifically addressing the issue of social equity.
I had worked on the campaign in Colorado, and I think that none of us understood at the time how important it was to include in the law from the beginning that it has to be intentional and deliberate.
Shalene Title is one of the commissioners on the state's Cannabis Control Commission. It created a licensing program that prioritized applicants from areas designated as disproportionately affected by marijuana prohibition. They also plan to set up training and technical assistance programs. But here, too, progress has been slow. The state has granted about 150 licenses. Only 3 have gone to minority business owners. And none of the priority applicants have had their applications approved.
This is huge.
Oh, this is only a small portion of it.
Chauncey Spencer is one of those applicants. He wants to open a dispensary and grow operation in Boston. Much of the delay comes from the municipal approval process. And for him, the biggest barrier isn't financial.
We don't have the political capital. We don't have the knowledge base to get things moving. And it's extremely unfair when we have to go up against lobbyists who have millions of dollars at their disposal.
Still, the costs are high. He says while waiting to get approved, he spent more than $80,000 on rent alone.
To come and have pizza right over there at the House of Pizza.
But for Spencer, who was arrested in 2004 for growing 4 marijuana plants, something that would now be legal in Massachusetts, it's worth it to be part of the industry.
We're hoping that we can correct that by keeping the money within the community, employing people from our community, and allowing the money to circulate as many times as humanly possible.
Cannabis Commissioner Shalene Title acknowledges the flaws and says more can be done.
I think the major lesson for other states is what Massachusetts has done is the bare minimum. I would like to see loan funds. I'd like to see more reinvestment into harm communities. I'd like to see expungement and just in general more of a central focus.
The state is now planning to offer certain licenses exclusively to social equity applicants for 2 years, pending public hearings. There's some cause for optimism. Advocates in states like Connecticut and New Jersey, which are interested in legalizing marijuana, say social equity will be a top priority at every stage. Still, as millions deal with the scars from the war on drugs, there's deep skepticism that any state can fully undo those harms and get inclusion in the marijuana industry right. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Yamiche Alcindor.